Hello there. Welcome to Nerd.World Films. Hope you're all doing well today. Haven't done a video for this channel in a while. Been a little wrapped up with a few of my other jobs, mainly my actual job, my other channel, and doing some home improvements, which don't really need to go into. But one of the things mainly has been redoing this room, which still isn't really done, and building myself a studio, which hopefully I'll be using for some of these videos in the future. Looking forward to that. Should be fun. Trying to keep my focus for now. This is a list of some obscure, forgotten movie classics that not all of them are going to be completely forgotten. I'm sure people recognize quite a few of them, but the films that I don't think get enough love, and the films that maybe when I was younger I appreciated at the time, but they seem to have fallen into obscurity with age. I'm doing a little bit of a video to remind everyone of the just awesomeness that is some of these movies. So, with that said, please like, share, subscribe. If you like this one, please head over to my main channel, Nerd.World, which is a bit more of a generic channel, sorry, which mostly focuses, I'll admit, on sci-fi, mostly Star Trek. There's a lot of stuff on there about the Terran Empire, etc. Head over there if you enjoy this content. Please go over there, like, share, and subscribe there. And with that said, let's get started. The Kindred is a 1987 creature feature starring Amanda Pays. This film has some nostalgia to me. It was one of the earliest films I ever owned as a child, which, considering in the UK it was an 18 certificate, which I didn't really think of at the time. It's a pretty damn horrific film for a 4-year-old to have been watching, which I was like 4 or 5 when I got this. The basic premise of the movie is science run amok. A man's mother who dies leaves him a house and tells him to go up there and destroy the experiments. The experiments, which there are some spoilers here, were basically conducted years earlier on DNA taken from him to create basically mutant monsters that are now living in that house as well as other creatures. And a shady scientific business partner of the man responsible for much of the experiments wants to continue them. He wants access to them, particularly one which turns out to be sort of the biological half-brother of the protagonist, while other characters in the film are not exactly what they seem and turn out to be part of the experiment themselves. The film's got some pretty dark themes being explored about nature and nurture and basically the ethics of science, basically as what Dr. Ian Malcolm put it, just because you can do something doesn't necessarily mean that you should. And yes, I know Dr. Ian Malcolm is a fictional character, but the statement stands. The next film on the list is Class of 1999. This is a 1990 sort of sequel to the movie Class of 1984, only this one's got robots. It's set in a sort of dystopian future America where the school system has become so bad, so out of control, gang warfare is rampant. There are armed guards in schools having to confiscate batons and stun guns, knives, guns, everything from students as they come into the school. Things have got so bad that effectively a military contract is brought in to put in military-grade robots as school teachers to try and get the situation under control. The movie stars Malcolm McDowell, Stacey Keach, and Pamela Greer, amongst others. The film is really underrated. Its effects are gross. There's no CGI in this thing, or at least very, very little that I can remember, if any. All the effects are done practically. It's clearly, to some degree, a RoboCop ripoff, but the robots in this one are bad guys. And the bit at the end of the movie where they all start taking off their flesh and revealing that they've got automatic weapons and flamethrowers and other things hidden underneath their chassis is just awesome. And they're playing a game of cat and mouse with the kids in the school. I really recommend this movie. It's cheesy as hell, but again, get drunk, get some popcorn, and just have a good time. It's a good film.
someone out there. No one knows his name.
Maniac Cop is a 1988 horror action movie. It's a very much an 80s movie as well. The basic story is a serial killer going around killing lots of innocent people who is dressed as a police officer. The movie's main protagonist, who is played by the legendary Bruce Campbell, would become the chief suspect in these murders, where then he would have to fight to clear his name, all the while City Hall and the police department are busy trying to cover up the whole thing to make it look like a police officer isn't responsible for these murders. Now, I'm not going to spoil too much of this film. It's a bit of a cult classic. It spawned 2 sequels and there is a bit of a supernatural element to it, and it does have some interesting social commentary to make, but it's mostly just a fun, dumb action horror movie. I'd recommend you check it out. The next film on the list is Cyborg Cop. This movie is something of a love letter to Universal Soldier, despite the obvious thought that it might be related to RoboCop or being a rip-off of RoboCop, which is what I thought when I first saw it. But actually it's an homage, shall we say, to Universal Soldier, with a lot of the same sort of themes. The movie stars John Rhys Davies as the scientist behind the creation of this new type of advanced super soldier, a cybernetically enhanced human given superhuman abilities by the mechanical augmentation. His intention was to market this as a new weapon to be sold on the black market to any government, terrorist organization or military group he could find who'd be willing to pay the right money to have their own private military of super soldiers, cybernetically enhanced. The main storyline of the film follows an ex-DEA agent as he travels to the Caribbean after receiving an emergency message from his brother, who is now missing. His brother, who had gone there to take down a terrorist organization. When he arrives, he discovers that his brother has been turned into one of these cybernetic soldiers, and he has to battle him and defeat the bad guys in order to stop them spreading their new weapons of destruction around the world. Now, this film is proper cheesy, don't get me wrong, it's not a cinematic masterpiece, but it managed to spawn 2 sequels that I hesitate to call successful, but they were funny. And again, it's a good cheesy popcorn flick. It's got plenty of action, mindless explosions, and lots of stereotypically 90s characters. For me, fantastic. The next movie on our list is Death Machine, starring Brad Dourif. This film has a very special place in my heart. I mean, I can't praise it enough. It's funny, it's violent, it's destructive, it's so 90s, it's so cheesy, and it's so amazing. The basic story is there's this company called Shank, and they develop weapons. Then they do a lot of shady, immoral stuff, and they've been developing this program called Hardman that's basically sort of a super soldier, cybernetically enhanced exoskeleton, which involves some mind wiping. It doesn't really work properly in instances of deaths, and they're covering it up. One of their CEOs is actually working basically to expose the company and trying to stop all this. And she's trying to get Brad Dourif's character, who's one of the main engineers and technicians or scientists, whatever he actually is, behind the program, arrested. She wants him stopped, she wants him fired because he's so dangerous. But everyone on the board is terrified of him because of what he's got in Vault 10. And what he's got in Vault 10 is the frontline morale destroyer, the War Beast, the Death Machine itself, a large gorilla-shaped semi-bipedal machine that's incredibly fast and tracks you based on your fear. Clawed hands, a shark-like head, this thing will just tear through you like a hot knife through butter. It's a monstrous machine that he controls, and he'll unleash on anyone that gets in his way. Now couple that with these sort of not eco-terrorists, but sort of friendly terrorists, shall we say, who break into the building, and their goal is the same. They want to expose the company's shady dealings, to the point where they don't even bring live ammunition. They're all pro-life. So he got no weapons to fight this thing with, and he unleashes it on them after she revokes all of his clearance. And then it's basically them, one of the other CEOs, trying to get out of the building, get down to the ground floor and get out. And that's basically the story, and it's just awesome. And there are more Easter eggs in this film, I think, than the entire Marvel movie series put together. References to everything is in this film, a bit like Wishmaster. Right, I can't praise it enough, so I'll move on. And now finally, a Leslie Nielsen classic. Now Leslie Nielsen mostly associated with comedy films, but actually in his early career was a pretty serious actor, and he did a little film in the 1950s called Biddin Planet. Now I'm sure a lot of people have heard of this film, but I want to bring some attention to it again, just how good this film actually was. And I mean, it has a lot of dated concepts in it. It's quite chauvinistic. The one and only like token woman that's in it is eye candy and a love interest for the captain, but you know, it's a movie of its times, right? Yeah, get over it. It's what the 50s were like. The film, on its own merit, though, is still an objectively good, well-made, good budget movie. I mean, this, for a sci-fi film, bear in mind, like sci-fi movies before the late 1970s were not taken seriously. They weren't considered box office draws. You had your rare exceptions like War of the Worlds, stuff like that. But this film is up there. I mean, groundbreaking special effects, full color, basically the equivalent of HD in its day. This film was amazing. Very well received, very well acted, very well paced, and most importantly, possibly even more importantly than Leslie Nielsen, may he rest in peace, amazing actor, it had Robbie the Robot. Robbie the freaking Robot. I love Robbie the Robot. He's the Wilhelm scream of robots. What was I saying? Right, yeah, basically, yeah, the premise. Humanity hasn't heard from a planet in quite a while. There's supposedly a colony there, but no one's heard from it. So a ship is dispatched, your nice traditional UFO type vessel, but this one's actually a human ship, sent out to find out what happened to the colony, what's happened to the crew, why has no one heard from them. They find that everyone's dead, bar one man and his daughter who happens to have never seen another human being in her entire life, at least not that she can remember. Turns out this planet was once home to a very advanced civilization who have since gone extinct but left all their incredibly advanced technology behind. The scientist didn't contact Earth because he wanted to study it for himself and not be interfered with by lesser scientists. Now, without going too much into it, there's a lot of monsters, there's a lot, you know, you got your big ray guns, you got your shields, you got your lot of cliches, which started in this film. Or at least back in the day when this film was being made, a lot of these cliches were new. I don't want to go too much into it because I want to recommend that people go watch this film, and I don't want to just spoil it. But it's this scientist not really understanding what he had, that the technology itself was actually the enemy. It was what was hurting them, just in such unseen ways. It's a good film. And again, Leslie Nielsen at the height of his career, before he became more synonymous with comedy after films like Airplane. Well, that's it for this list. Moving on from it, let's just quickly review. Okay, so to review, we had Kindred, we had Maniac Cop, we had Cyborg Cop, we had Class of 1999, we had Death Machine, and we had Forbidden Planet. 6 amazing and sometimes forgotten, and I bet by the current generation of, what are they calling themselves now, Zoomers? Probably a lot of them completely unknown movies, and I would recommend to anyone who's a sci-fi fan and who's a horror fan, you go check these movies out. Now I'm going to give these, as in accordance with the tradition I have on this channel, I'm going to give each one of these films a nerd score. And putting them up in the box now, we have, as you can see, pretty good score for most of these films. 2 scoring 6. Class of 1999 scoring a 5. Kindred scoring a 4. Maniac Cop a 4. Cyborg Cop comes in last with a 3, but that's mostly because even though that film is awesome, it's really low budget. It's pretty much just a Universal Soldier ripoff, as much as it could be, as a lot of films were around that time. You can always get films knocking off others, but there we have it. If you made it this far into the video, thank you. Hope you enjoyed it. Please like, share, subscribe. Head over to my other channel. Like, share, subscribe over there. Check out all the content I've got on that channel. And with that said, I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.